Now, if you look at this advertisement right here, where does your eye go when you first see this advertisement? It doesn't really go anywhere, right? I mean, there's no really focal point. Where do they want you to go? I mean, maybe it'll go to this the road image above West Pros, maybe, but there's just a lot of text. A lot of times we think, oh, we need to put a lot of text, let's just cram it in there. And there's no really layout and order. So let me show you another advertisement, the same content, but laid out in a different way. So now the focal point is obviously right on that flag and the driving paving part, and then they have the layout a little bit more organized just by rearranging it a little bit more. So when you make your designs, make sure you have creative layout and you're not just sticking stuff anywhere. Make sure you're training the eye. There's 5 ways to develop similarity. Okay, similarity means like continuity, togetherness. First of all, keep it simple. You know, you've probably heard of KISS when you're making a presentation, you know, in speech class. What does that stand for? So you want to eliminate the clutter. Anything that you don't need, I mean, don't put it in there. Don't clutter it up. It's better to have 50% readability and 50% white space rather than 80% cluttered and 20% white space. Kind of like the ad I just showed you before. Be unique. Images and text are all different languages. Use common language of color, texture, and direction. That means, well, it says color, right? Remember we choose the color scheme? That's kind of using uniformity or similarity. We have a color scheme. We're going to stick to those colors that we're using. Same with the textures. It's all going to be similar. Use similar typography. What is typography? Text. It's text. White space, borders, and photos. And stick with your format styles. Don't always try to be different to be creative. Sometimes originality works, but most of the time creativity equals different. Okay, use repetition to create creativity. So notice this part. It's an add. Okay. And then this is repetition. Notice the 4 repetition marks that they're trying to display. So the point comes across a lot better than this and just all listed in together. So repetition. Organization. Okay. So as you can see, this is a little bit cluttered, where this is a little bit better organized with the columns like that. Here's an example of white space within columns. So notice this example, and here's more white space and even more white space. So depending on what you need, okay, you'll want to use the white space that is appropriate for the layout that you're using. Okay, we learned color wheel a few days ago. You know, complementary colors and analogous colors. So make sure you're smart with the colors that you use and make sure that they're coordinate with your scheme. But some people can get crazy color. See this picture? It's all crazy colors. There's like colors all over the place. It kind of like makes your eyes hurt with all the color. It's also, if you're gonna print it, it's gonna be, you know, a lot of ink. And whereas this one, the color is more accent and stand out because there's less color. Let's see. So that's one example of color. Okay, choosing dominance and scale. So you notice this, they have the like a logo, the name of the name, and then the image or the fly. So notice the fly really stands out. Here they're about the same. Here the logo stands out, and here the logo really stands out. So notice there's a logo and a fly, or the name and the logo, and notice that depending on the size of each, you're going to get a different feel to it. So that's something to consider. Like if you have the title of a CD, and then your signature, like which one do you want to be big, which one do you want to be small, and then if you have an image, do you want the image to stand out, or do you want the picture to stand out, or the text to stand out? So varying it is choosing it. Layout choices. So there's different layout ways that you can do things. So here's two examples of two different types of layouts. Use of white space. Okay. We talked about this before, so I won't talk more about that today. Grid. Sometimes it's good to like make a grid, or like rule of thirds. Like this isn't set up for rule of thirds, but you know, rule of thirds would be down, down, and then across. You want to make sure the points of interest are at those points. And making a grid is important, especially for like if you're making a CD, to make sure like your text is lined up, things are where they should be. I mean, it's still rule of thirds. You have like horizontally, it's rule of thirds. It's 1, 2, 3. Okay. If you take out this box, then it's rule of thirds. So you want to make sure that it's lined up on the rule of thirds. You don't want to make it like right in the middle, or like right up here it's off-centered. So in Photoshop you can use guides to do that, and I can show you how to make guides. Use of columns is important because it's always easier to read text in columns rather than all the way across the page. Our eyes read faster when they can just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They can basically scan this text and get the content, versus going all the way across, coming all the way back over, and all the way across. So this is how people read. People read from top to bottom. They start at the top left and work their way down the page. Closeness connects while distance separates. So from here, things were close, so notice this text is close, so everything kind of like is close together and your eye goes with the text. Big and dark is important, small and light is less important. So if you have something in bold or a picture that's darker, that's going to stand out more. So sometimes if people have like a quotation that's really long and not as important, they'll put that in like light, maybe not black, but gray. The fullness should be balanced with emptiness, and everything has a shape, including emptiness. Sometimes you need points of emphasis. Okay, so notice the title says "The New Face of Trade Unionism." So it says the new face, and this is like maybe the guy who's going to take over and who's leading the trade part. And notice that it really emphasizes like the new face, kind of like play on words. So that's something to consider. Like if you're going to take a picture of yourself for your artist on the front cover, I mean, what are you just going to have a normal picture? Is it going to be a close-up picture? Is it going to be a backed-out picture? You need to keep that in mind. Some people use 3D, like different layers, and it looks like 3D just by adding different layers of text. So that's something to consider. Font choice, okay? This is very boring, right? It's just like straight across in a picture. It's like typical. But then here, okay, it's a little bit more creative. Same content, but see the classroom, classroom, classroom? It kind of makes yourself read that. Do you guys remember those, the worship night posters? So one of the reasons why I put like the background like worship night, worship night, worship night, and it wasn't even full text, was based on this concept. Because when I first learned about this, you don't want the reader to be like obviously read the text. You want them to try to guess the text. So that's why I did that worship night background like over and over and over. And it's harder to read. So this is 3 different headline styles, and headline styles could be like the title of your CD. But there's different ways you can use. I mean, they're still using the same graphic, but in different ways. And each one has a different element. So this one's aligning and separating it from the main text. So you see the separation. This one's contrasting font styles.